Ladies and gentlemen, we all know how great of a player Magnus Carlsen is. But how many times have you seen him lose in a miniature to a lower rated opponent? Well, in today's game, we are about to explore something quite rare like that. This game was played between the Brazilian Grandmaster Luis Paulo Supi, who was playing with the white pieces, and Magnus was playing with the black pieces. So Supi starts with pawn to e4, and Magnus plays pawn to d5. The Scandinavian takes, and here it's interesting that Supi does not go with the normal line with knight to c3, after which Carlsen probably would have replied with queen to e6, as he has mentioned this move quite a bit in his streams. So instead, Supi wanted to throw Magnus off guard, and that's why he prepared the move knight to f3. Bishop to g4, both players developing their pieces, and here Magnus intends to castle queenside. Knight to c3, pushing the queen back to d7, and now comes h3. And after takes, both sides castle opposite sides. Okay, now you know that when both sides castle opposite sides, you know that both sides are going to push with their A and B pawns or FG and H pawns. For example, Supi will definitely look to tear apart the queen side with his A and B pawns, and Magnus will definitely push with these pawns on the king side. And whoever gets the attack first is likely to win. It's Magnus's move, and Magnus plays knight to d4. And Supi is the one who starts the race, and he plays pawn to a4. Magnus plays king to b8. And here, Supi goes knight to b5 and offers Carlsen a choice. He can either trade the knights or take the bishop. Here, Magnus played knight takes on f3. It would have been interesting if he would have captured the knight here. Here, he would have been able to gain a free pawn, but it looks extremely unpleasant for black due to the open rook. The bishop is slicing here. So that's why Magnus did not choose this variation. Instead, he decided to eliminate the bishop. So queen takes on f3, and now comes a6. And do you know what Supi played? He did not move the knight back, but he instead went for the move c4. He now intends to sacrifice more material because takes, and it looks again extremely scary because the queen is coming to a3. Maybe not right at the moment, but as humans, it is very dangerous. So again, Magnus did not take, and he instead went for the move e5. d4 takes, and this is probably one of the big mistakes of the game because now it allowed Supi to play bishop to f4 and to develop his bishop in a very long and active diagonal. Magnus now eliminates the knight, and Supi takes back. And here, in these kind of positions, you know that c5 is coming at some point. So Magnus plays bishop to d6, and Supi goes rook to a2. Now he has rook f to a1 and to double up rooks on the a file and to checkmate the black king. But you know what was even more tempting here? The move pawn to c5. Wait, doesn't this hang a pawn? Yes, it does. Because after bishop takes c5, Supi has this brilliant pawn to b6. And you cannot push the c pawn. Nor Magnus can take due to the pin. And if you take with the bishop, then that bishop used to guard something. Yes, the square on a3, which is now available for the white queen. And the white queen jumps here, and there is black is busted here. There is no move that saves checkmate. In fact, the engine gives it a mate in 6 for Supi here. And on the other hand, if you capture the bishop, then you don't even need to take. Just queen to a3 again. And how is Magnus surviving this? So let's say he plays c6, creating some room for the black king. But then queen a8 check, king c7, and b6 leads to checkmate. All these mates were hanging, but Supi did not see all of this. He instead played rook to a2. And now comes queen to f5 by Magnus, pressurizing the bishop. Rook f to a1, threatening checkmate. You cannot take because there is a mate hanging there. I hope you didn't forget about that. So therefore, instead, Magnus goes king to c8 and asks Supi that where is your attack? Let's see if you go rook to a8. But now my king simply runs away. And maybe you are the one in pressure here. In this position, Supi found the move which Magnus completely missed. The spectacular queen to c6. And after Magnus saw this, he resigned the game. Because now how are you preventing checkmate? This move does two things. First, it forbids the pawn on c6 from advancement, and it also guards the square on d7. And let's say you take it, again the pawn covers both the b7 and the d7 square. And you cannot prevent checkmate. You can only prolong it with something like bishop to a3, rook takes a3, and maybe Magnus will play queen to a5, and there's just no preventing it. Just rook a8 is checkmate. See, this is one of the few rarer games where you can get to see a miniature against someone like Magnus. Up until this point here in the game, this one, it wasn't seeming like that white could have done anything, but from nowhere came that queen to c6, and Magnus had to resign. That's how unpredictable chess can be.